had a workbench base with legs made from a couple of 2x4s, but I wanted to put it on wheels. The Rockler workbench caster kit was perfect for the job as it uses separate plates bolted to the sides of the legs, which you then slot the wheels into and then remove them easily once the bench has been moved. That way you don't have any trip hazards from wheels that stick out all the time. It does also mean you could add the plates at a later date, as long as you can get out the legs to drill the holes. Straight out of the box, the plate expected to be mounted onto legs about 19mm thick. Unfortunately mine were about 90mm thick. So the supplied bolts had to go, and a set of 100mm long bolts were needed. I measured the Rockler bolts. Them 6 bolts were the ones to get. Unfortunately the only ones I already had round tops, which stood proud of the plates and fouled the wheels when you tried to slip them into the plates. So I needed a set of countersunk M6 100mm long bolts. The Rockler bolts had nylock nuts, so I thought, why not reuse those? Wrong. The Rockler bolts are all imperial, and M6 most definitely are not. The Rockler instructions tell you where to mark up the bolt holes for the plates. That didn't suit my setup as I had rails that would fail the mounting hardware. So I measured how close I could get to the Rockler recommendation and decided close enough. I was able to have the base upside down in my case for ease of fitment, but you don't need to. I marked up where the plates should go on the legs. Having marked up the right height, I transferred the settings to a couple of combination squares so I knew the bolt hole heights would match up on all the legs, so I didn't have any wobble or have the wheels try and twist the base out of true by being at different heights relative to the bottoms of the legs. Do make sure you fit the plates the right way round on each leg because the wheels only slip in from one side. It's the same side the retaining pins go in to make sure the wheels don't slide out while you're moving the bench. I marked up the holes and used the brad point drill bit to make sure there was no wander when I did drill the holes. To make sure the holes were drilled perpendicular to the legs, I used a drill guide clamped to the leg. It's the best way I've found when you're trying to drill in an awkward or restricted position. It does reduce how far into the material the drill bit goes, but once the initial hole is in place, that itself acts as a good guide for drilling the hole further. I then repeated the procedure for the other hole. Using the same drill bit to drill further got me most of the way through the legs, but not quite all the way through the full 90mm. Just make sure you are lined up in the existing hole and it remains straight. To get the hole all the way through the legs, I needed an extra long drill bit. This wasn't a brad point bit, so could have slipped across the material for the initial holes, but by now the holes were so deep it had no choice but to remain true. A quick check with the bolts showed the holes were straight all the way through, and a dry fit with the plate showed everything lined up nicely. Just needed to bolt the plates down tight, making sure they were aligned as before. Then a quick test with the wheel for a final check that everything was in the right place before doing the other 3 legs. No point doing all 4 and then finding that they were all wrong. If there was going to be an issue, now was the time to deal with it. I used a long rule to prove the height of the plate was correct and would do the job as intended. I then fitted the other plates in the same way. That way I knew they were all going to be the same and they were all going to get the job done. To check that the base would remain square when raised on its wheels, I happened to use a spirit level to compare the readings between the wheels up and the wheels down. As expected, everything was good. As I said, these checks can be done with the bench the right way up. It just happened to be a bit more convenient for me because the thing was tipped upside down, but I could have done it anyway. So how did it end up? Damn good. The bench sits on its real legs when doing its day job, and that's the sturdiest position. When I want to move it, I pop the wheels into the plates, use the locking pins, move the bench, drop it down when I've finished. Sliding the wheels out from the plates removes any trip hazard. I hope that was useful, and I hope to see you in the next one.